What is dear to me is embodiment and manifestation and authenticity and self-expression and all of these juicy things. Creator energy. I thought today we would talk about mindset magic. Really, this is alchemy. This is alchemy. That's the kind of magic this it is. That's the kind of magic this is that we're going to be talking about today. All right. And specifically with regard to manifestation and embodiment. So embodiment for me is the ownership of our humanity, right? Because old spiritual paradigm kind of told us to separate ourselves, to separate our divinity from our humanity, right? That because we're embodied or because we're human, we are less divine, we are broken, we're flawed, we're sinful, right? We're all of these things that create that separation consciousness of how we are less than, right? Whereas separation is the ultimate illusion, as we know, because we're all one energy and we are all of the same source, right? So embodiment for me, as an umbrella term, really is the, to break it kind of down, is the ownership of our humanity, the ownership of self being the same thing as soul, just a different expression, right? The self is a vehicle of soul. It is a manifestation of soul. It is the embodiment or the crystallization, the outpictured physical reality of soul, right? It's all the same. It's one and the same. And then manifestation, of course, we all know what manifestation is. Right? It is the anchoring of the, which is kind of the same word as embodiment. I posted a quote today. I think it was from dictionary.com or vocabulary.com. And it said embodiment is the process of making abstract concepts reality or physicalized, right? But isn't that what manifestation is? The process of manifestation is a process of creation. It is a process of bringing something from the non-physical energetic realm into physical concrete experience or reality, right? Whether it is an experience that we're manifesting or a tangible thing. You see, so how embodiment, I'm just kind of like realizing how interconnected these words are, right? But as souls embodied, as embodied creator beings, we are the manifestation of source. We are the manifestation of soul, right? We are the manifestation of the non-physical. And so embodiment and manifestation, kind of two and the same things. And so we're going to be talking about mindset magic today as it kind of relates to embodiment and manifestation, right? Because as a creator being, as an embodied creator, you are never not creating. It's simply a question of what are you creating today and is it intentional, right? That's the ultimate question because you can never not create. It's just it's really just a question of is it intentional or is it something like autopilot based or, is it beneficial? Is it not? All of these things. You're always creating something. That's how powerful you are. And so today, let's talk about mindset. Let's talk about the magic and alchemy that we can, utilize there for more pleasurable, joyful, intentional, embodied experiences and manifestation creations, right? Does that sound good? Hi, friends. Hello. Okay, so when it comes to the embodied experience of being a human being, of being an incarnated individual, right, of being physical, living in the physical world, which we're energetic all at the same time, right? But yeah, when it comes to the embodied experience and when it comes to manifestation, there are a lot of mindset blocks that we very frequently run into, right? And one of those things is, negative emotions. Air quotes. Negative emotions. When it comes to embodiment, and like I said, I described embodiment really as the ownership of self, the ownership of your humanity, as, you know, not something separate from soul or spirit or source, but as, you know, the same thing, just experiencing itself in a different form, right? Just as if water, you know, how water can become ice or water can become steam, it's all the same energy, just literally crystallizing and organizing and arranging itself in different patterns, right? So really owning our humanity is just another expression of soul, of source, of the one energy, right? When it comes to embodiment or manifestation manifestation processes, what often trips us up is mindset, right? And mindset around specifically negative emotions, right? Or what I like to call less desirable emotions, okay? And we'll talk a little bit about that as well, how less desirable is, that's a mindset choice to choose that word versus negative emotions, right? So I have a question for you guys. Think about just where you're at with your incarnated embodied experience, where you're at with whatever it is you're manifesting or creating or intending in your life right now. Do your negative emotions such as doubt or fear or let's just roll with those, like doubt or fear. Do those ever trip you up, right? Do those ever make you feel less than? Do those emotions ever make you feel like, what the heck am I doing here? Like, why am I feeling this way? Like, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I shouldn't be having these thoughts or feels, right? Now I have another question for you. What if all of those emotions, the good, the bad, the ugly, what if all of them were just neutral feedback mechanisms? What if they weren't really negative or positive at all? What if they were simply neutral energy, just neutral feedback? Think about the way when, because our emotions are part of our nervous system and our embodied system of consciousness. You know, when you like touch the hot stove and your like body, without you even thinking about it, instantly retracts, right? That's a feedback mechanism that you don't even have to be consciously aware of. The body's like, heat, danger, right? And we jerk our hands away. Like that's a positive thing. That's a good thing that our body has that mechanism of like pain, ouch, hot, and it rips our hand away, right? If there's any pain sensed there, that's a good feedback mechanism, because it tells the body to like remove itself from the thing that is going to damage it, right? And yet pain is an undesirable experience, right? So do you see how, like, if our emotions function in the same way, that it's not the emotion itself that is inherently good or bad, it's actually our relation to it, how we engage it, it's our mindset around it that really determines whether it's going to be a negative or dematerializing experience, or a positive experience that materializes clarity or deeper understanding or awareness. You hear me? Does that make sense? So what if all emotions and feels were just neutral feedback mechanisms, and it was our relationship to them that really determined whether they were good, high vibe, or low vibe? Ooh, because we use those words a lot, right? Ooh, high vibe or low vibe, right? Negative emotions or low vibe emotions. But here's the thing, we're human and we're here to experience the full spectrum of emotions. And so what happens is, when we get into the low vibe, high vibe conversation, is we start to make ourselves wrong for experiencing low vibe or negative things, right? Low vibe or negative feels. Specifically, and I'm talking about, like, just for example here, like doubt, like doubting ourselves, right? Or doubting that our dreams and desires or the things we want to create and manifest of the world are really for us, right? Or like the fear that the things we want to create and build and experience and have are never going to get to us, right? Like those kinds of negative, low vibe emotions, doubt, fear, right? We're so quick to label them as low vibe or high vibe. Again, the ultimate question here is, what if all of that is just inherently neutral energy, and how we engage and relate to each emotion as a sensation is really what determines if it's going to be a low vibe or high vibe outcome, right? Because we say things like, you know, we need to feel to heal, which I totally believe. We need to feel to heal. We need to feel just to be. Like that's part of the beingness experience, is feeling, right? And so how do we embrace our feels without making ourselves wrong or bad for having them? And how do we experience and feel so that we can heal without relating to the emotion, in that negative way where we make ourselves inherently wrong for having a certain feeling or for experiencing a certain emotion? You know what I mean? It's the mindset. It's that subtle mindset shift, because there's a very different it's super subtle but super profound shift in our orientation when we are feeling from that place of woundedness, of because I'm having this feeling, there must be something wrong with me, I must be broken, I must be doing it wrong, I must be fucking it up, right? This must not be in alignment, like all of that doubt, right? Versus going, okay, so I'm having some doubts, I'm having some fears, how can these be portals for deeper clarity, for deeper understanding about what it is I want and what it is I don't want? You know, how can I kind of sit from that neutral sort of observer position, as we talk about, and kind of sort through this doubt or sort through this fear to really, as a feedback mechanism, right? If I really treated it as a neutral sensing feedback loop, you know, what would it be providing me clarity on or deeper understanding into? And how could I explore that without making myself wrong for it, with just understanding that this is part of my neural feedback, right? Part of the embodied experience. All of it is pointing me home. All of the low vibe or negative or positive or what have you, all of it is inherently neutral underneath the surface. And it's how I decide to engage it and relate to it that really lets it either be something that is deeper, more deeply debilitating to me, or something that actually provides me more clarity and motivation and confidence on what it is I want, right? Again, so subtle, but this is what typically happens. We feel some kind of way, and then we pile on top of that all the fuck shit of making ourselves wrong for feeling that type of way. And so it just becomes this negative feedback loop of, I felt shitty to begin with, and now I feel shitty because I feel shitty, and I shouldn't, and I'm shitting all over myself. You know what I mean? So the subtle shift is, no emotion is a bad emotion. No feel is a bad feel inherently. Are there emotions and feels that are less desirable than others? Absolutely. And all of them are transient, right? Just as this experience is like a blink of an eye, the embodied experience is like a blink of an eye in all of eternity, right? Every emotion too, we really are all of the emotions. We are all of the things. And it's just that certain ones are expressed at different times as we move and travel, like an amoeba that changes shape. Like, this is what we are as a human being. We are the entire universe experiencing itself. And so all of the stuff is within us. It's just some of it is rising to the surface and moving in or moving out. And so by allowing it all to be inherently neutral and really focusing on, how do I want to experience this? If the doubt is going to be present, how do I engage the doubt in a way? How do I explore it in a way that I could gain clarity here, that I could gain a deeper awareness of who I am and what I want, what I don't want? How is that contrast going to help me focus even more? How's it going to point me back home into my heart and what it is I really want and am here for, you know? That's, you guys, that's huge. That's the alchemy I'm talking about today. It's the power of choice. It's huge. And this takes practice. This takes a lot of fucking practice. Like, there is no expert in this area. I'd say there are people that are gifted and that have been, not gifted, people that are practiced. But it is a practice. And by that I mean there is no end point, there's no arrival, there's no like expert, crowning ship. That's not a word. There's no arrival, because this is ongoing. We are always coming up against new challenges or delving into new creative endeavors and experiencing ourselves in new ways as we grow and evolve. And that's why it's a practice, because there is no expert arrival destination with this work, with the power of choice, with mindset, with personal alchemy, with understanding ourselves, with becoming more of ourselves, with becoming more aware, right? So again, there's that subtle place of feeling. Like we say, we got to feel to heal, we got to feel to be human, we got to feel because it's part of who we are. But that subtle shift of all emotions are sensations that are neutral. It is how I choose to relate to it or engage with it or respond to it that is going to determine whether this is ultimately a low vibe experience or a high vibe experience. One that puts me in a negative feedback loop of making myself wrong or broken or flawed or gross or incapable or whatever because I'm feeling a thing and I'm piling all that shit on top of it. Or understanding that this world or this experience includes feels, and even the less negative, less desirable emotions and feels and sensations can be tools that point me back home to myself, that I can use and engage in a way that provides me deeper clarity or confidence or trust or understanding or awareness, okay? So, all emotions are just neutral feedback mechanisms. For example here, we talked about like kind of specifically talking about the embodied experience and the manifestation experiences. So what we run into a lot just in the embodied experience, but specifically in manifesting, is doubt, like, oh God, and fear. Let's just use those two as examples, right? So doubt, like just doubting ourselves, doubting our gifts, doubting our worth, doubting our value, doubting our capabilities, doubting our qualifications, doubting our readiness, like doubt, right? Or fear, we run into fear a lot. Fear of, taking the risk of saying yes, of saying no, right? The fear behind trying something new. Really, fear stems from that like place of the unknown. I don't know what's on the other side, therefore I don't know how to handle it, and therefore it's scary, right? But I want you to think about doubt. Like, if you can, even just like take a deep breath and be like, when's the last time I doubted something? And see if you can kind of like bring that to mind and kind of play with that old doubting feeling that arose whenever that last time that you doubted yourself was. Kind of like, what was what was going on in that doubt? Because I bet you what you'll find is there was a lot of confidence. There was a lot of trust that the thing you wanted to happen wasn't going to happen, or that it wasn't going to happen in your timing. There's all of this like belief within the doubt that it wasn't working, or it wasn't gonna work, or it wasn't gonna pan out, right? Or that you weren't ready, or that you weren't qualified, right? Do you see all the belief, all of the trust, all of the confidence, all of the surety, all of the certainty beneath the doubt, like within the bubble of the doubt? So here's a crazy thing. The doubt, again, is just neutral feedback. Right? Neutral feedback. It's how we engage with that undesirable emotion or sensation that really determines whether it's going to be kind of a low vibe experience or something that we alchemize into a positive, high vibe experience. So within the doubt, if we can really kind of zoom out and see, like, man, look at how much my brain, my ego mind is just in the doubt, is just believing so full-heartedly that this thing isn't going to work, or that, you know, my dreams and desires aren't going to pan out, or that I'm not capable or worthy. Do you see all the confidence and the trust in that? What if I just oriented that trust and confidence and belief in a different direction? Then the doubt just kind of transmutes by itself. It just kind of dissipates. And I get to have those other, you know, more positive, aligned, desirable experiences, just oriented in a different way, oriented to, you know, focused on a new thing, right? It's almost like the doubt was the feedback mechanism that was telling me, oh, your belief's on fire, your trust is on fire, your confidence is on fire. It's just burning in the wrong direction, right? Like, move the fuse, you know what I mean? Fine tune the knob. Like, the radio station is working, but, you know, the knob has slipped and now we're kind of veering off course, right? Does that make sense? Like, the doubt just gets to be the thing that just transmutes, dissipates. This is the alchemy, you guys. This is the magic. This is magic. You see what I mean? With fear, like, you know, courage requires fear to exist, because courage is feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And I think, you know, fear is just, what's the word I want to use? Like, when I'm feeling fear about taking a big leap of faith, about doing something that I really care about and believe in, about like taking a risk, all the fear is just reminding me that I care about this thing so much, that it's so dear to my heart, and, you know, I want it to work, and I desire it so fully, and you know, so that then the fear doesn't really become a hurdle or a burden. It just reminds me how passionate I am about this thing, and how much I want this to happen and to work and to you know, be manifested or be created or be experienced, you know? It just gets to be kind of like a motivational tool, where now, like, I kind of feel the fear and I kind of like it a little bit, you know? It's kind of like, ooh, what good's gonna come of this? Because I care about it so much. Like, if I just lean into this, right, and stretch my edges a little bit, like, what good's gonna come of this? Because there's so much passion and so much love behind it. And the fear then kind of just gets to be this, like, lighthearted, you know, yeah, what light, undense kind of experience sprinkling on the cake, right? But you see what I mean? Like, it's the fine tuning, it's the mindset of how do I engage this sensation, this emotion or this feeling. It's just a sensation. It's part of my embodied experience. It's all meant to point me back home. It's all meant to point me back to myself, to my soul, to my source inside, to what it is I'm here to do and be and create. And so I don't have to make myself wrong for experiencing the whole spectrum of all of these things. You know, I get to explore them from that kind of neutral observer position and go, okay, what is this telling me? And how is this having me move the needle or move the dial and fine tune things just a little bit more, so that I can be even that much more aligned and sure and confident, and building my trust muscles and building my courage muscles, you know? I find with doubt, I feel like doubt is such a beautiful portal for clarity, because doubt kind of, you know, what doubt does is it shows you, like, it's your brain going, oh God, like, you want this thing to happen. You're trying to manifest this thing, but here's all the ways it could go wrong, right? That's what doubt does. It gives us a whole slew of alternate realities of how things could go wrong or not work. And I'm like, wow, man, if my brain can, like, think of all the ways that it can go wrong, what if I just told my brain to find out all the ways that it could go right, you know? And in from the neutral place of feeling and kind of exploring that neutral sensation, it actually helps me gain clarity. So I'm like, well, if I'm looking at all the ways it could go wrong, and then I'm flipping that script and looking into all the ways that it could go right, I actually kind of get to refine and, clarify what it is I'm manifesting and what it is I'm shooting for. I gotta go, okay, well, actually, if I really could give the whole universe a full menu of all the details I want, I would want it to look like this, and I would want it to form like this, because that's what's really aligned with my values and my desire here. And so the doubt is just like a place where I can kind of play and explore a little bit and get even more clear, and then redirect that confidence and that trust and that belief into the thing I really care about, the thing I'm really wanting and trying to manifest, you see? Are you guys following me? I know it's kind of a lot, and I feel like we talk about these things in these types of spaces, but this is practice work. This is not just something we can talk about. This is something we really have to experience and play with, right? Really play with. We talk in the spiritual community all the time, I feel like, of that open mind and curiosity and almost that childhood innocence of well, what could happen? What could happen if you really just decided right now that every emotional sensation was inherently neutral? What would happen if every time you experienced an undesirable emotion or sensation or feeling, you went, this is neutral. How can I, from a neutral space, kind of explore this and pull it apart a little bit and see how it's pointing me back home to myself, to my heart, to my values, to what it is I believe in? What would happen? And again, that's an experiential thing. We can talk about it till the cows come home. I don't know why that came out of my mouth. I never say that. We could talk about it forever, but it's really something that has to be experienced and played with as a practice, right? As a tool. But this is how powerful your mind is. This is how amazing your brain is. And sometimes we equate the brain to the ego mind or the what's the other word? Inner child. Those things are not flaws. The ego is not a flaw. The inner child is, not a broken thing. These are tools. These are mechanisms, that again, just the dial, adjusting how we how we use them in the way that they were designed to use for the system of consciousness is what really makes all the difference. Again, the brain is always gonna do its thing where it tries to problem solve and tries to gain evidences, which is what the ego does and the inner child does, right? It tries to solve problems to keep you safe, to keep you alive. And so that neutral space of, okay, am I actually in danger here? Okay, so no. So how can I use this mechanism of problem solving or of trying to keep me safe in a way that actually supports my continued growth and evolution, in a way that actually keeps me on the path of whatever it is I'm manifesting for myself, right? It's just the subtle recalibration of the thing. It's all working. It's just, is it working where we want it to work? You know what I mean? All right, so that is really the manifestation, the mindset magic I have for you guys today. It really is the power of how you choose to relate and respond and engage anything, right? We are all one energy, experiencing ourselves as individuals, and therefore everything is relationship, whether it is me engaging with this inanimate object or the life inside of it, the water, or another living thing, or a person, or an experience. All of it is relational. It is all mirroring. It is all energy experiencing itself in different forms, right? So this is your invitation to really experience all facets and aspect of yourself, the good, the bad, the ugly, the negative, the undesirable, as all inherently neutral, all inherently good things. It's just, how do we relate to any one experience or situation or circumstance or experience? How do we engage it? How do we respond to it? that makes all the difference of whether it becomes a low vibe, debilitating thing or something, you know, positive or high vibe that actually moves us into expansion and integration versus that closing off and separation consciousness, right? Now, this doesn't mean that we won't have, you know, negative feelings. Like fear's still uncomfortable, doubt's still uncomfortable, pain's still uncomfortable. It's simply that subtle difference of I'm not wrong or flawed or broken for experiencing doubt or pain or fear or what have you, right? It's that subtle shift of even these things are part of spirit or soul or part of the universe. Again, it is how I relate to it that makes all the difference of whether it's going to be something that promotes wholeness and healing and alchemy and expansion and integration, or something that promotes separation, rejection. You understand? Super, super subtle and immensely profound. And again, very much experiential. We could talk about it forever, but it really is something that you have to experience, you have to play with, you have to practice, right? Julie says, it makes sense and is quite an interesting take. Seems crazy difficult to step back and analyze when I'm in the midst of fear, doubt, and the resulting rage at finding myself in the same place. 1000% agree and understand. For so long. Anger that I've done all this work, but the same old issues still come up. I'm not broken. Feel so broken sometimes though. But what if the issues keep coming up so that you can have the experience of not making yourself wrong for them? So that you can have that experience of, well, what if I just explored this from the neutral space to the best of my abilities, right? This is something I'm teaching all the time. It's that presence piece of, how do I say it? I feel like I repeat this all the time, but now it's spinning for me. But practicing presence, right? Coming into my body, getting into my body, making my body a safe place. So for me, this is like putting my hands on my heart. I love the a little head massage for myself. Sometimes just touching yourself, like hip circles, whatever you want to do to breath, right? Get into the body and how can I, in this moment, right? There's no past, there's no future, just right here, right now. How can I, in this moment, to the best of my abilities, with the resources I have right now, and that includes wherever our energy is at, right? Do A, B, or C. So for you, it would be find neutrality, or really find neutrality. That doesn't mean you have to reach neutrality at 100% for this to work, right? It just means to the best of your abilities, with wherever you're at, with whatever resources are available to you, and that includes your own energy. That's it. That's all it takes. And we just do that over and over and over and over again. And that's the practice, right? There's no arrival. There's no destination. In every situation and every circumstance and every relational engagement with energy is going to be different. Our energy is going to be different. This is a big world. As much as we want to, think that we attract everything, I don't know. The world's a really big place. There's stuff that is outside of our control. We don't live in a bubble, right? So, there's always going to be situations and circumstances that we didn't foresee, and vice versa, and da-da-da-da. So, everything is fluid. And so even where we're at, what resources we have available to us in any given moment, where our energy is, all of that is fluid and changeable. So it's really that presence piece of how can I, to the best of my abilities, with whatever resources I have right here, right now, do this thing, even if I only move the needle 1 degree, even if I only move from anger to neutrality by 1 degree, that's enough. That's a starting place, and it's perfect, and it's whole, and it's holy, and it's beautiful, and it's working, right? And that's why it's a practice, because it's doing that over and over again. It gets easier. The mindset shift becomes anchored. The energetics of all of that become more solidified. The pattern that is working, that is the mindset shift, that is the alchemy, that is the neutrality, gets rooted, it anchors, it solidifies, and so it gets easier and easier and easier, right? But I totally understand when we're in the flux of the emotion, it's hard. And again, we just have to release the idea that there's arrival or perfection, right? It's fluid. The context and the availability of resources and all of those things change in every situation. So it's literally just in this moment, to the best of my abilities with the resources I have, how can I choose? How can I shift? How can I transmute? How can I, and then 1 degree is enough, even if it's 1 degree, right? I think that's the thing with emotions and feelings, because they're so fluid and because they're so sensational and intense. One of my teachings around multidimensionality is that we're so expansive, and again, the idea that we have all of these things within us, it's just that certain things are coming to the surface at different times, right? Like that amorphous amoeba, like all the feels, the whole universe is in you, and so different parts of it are coming out to engage, to relate, right? We can hold more than one emotion, and so that's where I think we trip up. Like, you could still have the anger and find some neutrality, right? It isn't black and white. It isn't one or the other. And the perfect example is everybody knows what it is to feel bittersweet. It's like I'm sad and I'm happy all at the same time. What is this thing, right? It's because even our emotional sensing is so complex and beautiful that finding neutrality doesn't mean apathy. It doesn't mean that there are no other feels. It's just that 1 degree of difference of, okay, well, it's an expansion piece. Okay, I'm having the anger, I'm having the doubt, I'm having the fear. Instead of closing down, how can I take a breath and actually expand and create spaciousness within myself so that neutrality can also come in and hold space at the table, or so that love, or so that trust, or so that peace, right? And that doesn't mean that peace or love or neutrality have to, be at 100%. It just means that they get to be at the table too. It means that we're not, in that way, that expansiveness and that openness and that presence of finding the spaciousness to be more than one thing, all of that is we're just not, all that means is we're just not over identifying or hyper identifying with one thing, because no one thing could ever fully define you. You are multidimensional, you are the whole universe, you are all the emotions experiencing itself, right? And so that's the difference. I think that's one of the areas that really trips us up too, and that's part of this mindset magic as well, is to experience joy, that doesn't mean my joy has to be at 100%. To experience pleasure, that doesn't mean my pleasure has to be at 100%. To experience neutrality, doesn't mean that has to be at 100% and nothing else gets to exist. It's I get to just create space for all of it, right? Because even when I'm in that place of doubt or the fear and I'm exploring it, that means it's still there. But I'm just allowing neutrality to be a partner in that experience instead of the doubt completely taking over and running the show, right? So it's how I'm engaging with all of these neutral energies to create something, to create an experience, to create awareness, to create clarity, to create coming back home to myself, right? So I hope that kind of helps. And obviously it gets easier when we play with it. And so that's the other invitation too, is to just, again, take it from that kind of childhood innocence space and just like, okay, how can I just kind of explore this to the best of my abilities? There's no right way. There's no wrong way, right? But how can I kind of like, play with that and see what happens and see what's available to me,
If you are looking for support in practicing this kind of mindset magic, this kind of alchemy, emotional alchemy, join me in the Embodied Creatrix Program. It is a container. It is container work, which is what I love. By container, I mean we build a community. We have 9 weeks together, and we go all in to practicing and implementing the tools that are already alive inside of us. This is not so much a teaching program. This is not about education. It is about implementation. It is about creating a safe space where we can really truly practice and explore ourselves in new ways, where we can rewild, decondition, and see what is available to us when we enter into relationship with ourself from that beautiful space of trust and curiosity and experimentation. So if you are looking for support, for community, for a container, a dedicated space with a dedicated set time to really delve into this work of building an embodied relationship with yourself, of manifesting your dreams, of actualizing your desires, of living on purpose, then join me in Embodied Creatrix. Our spring session starts April 5th, 2021. Find out more or sign up at kelseykinseywhitelight.com/Embodied Creatrix.